Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in film, Devin, and today we're here to give our reactions to The Fall Guy, starring Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, and can be seen in theaters as of today, May 5th, 2024. So hopefully it has its proper theatrical run, but we'll see. There's a few rumblings online with its box office return and its opening weekend. But before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix. Again, that is Optix with an X, or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, how's your weekend been? It's a Sunday. We're here talking about The Fall Guy. It's Fall Guy Sunday. Today is Fall Guy Sunday for us, but how's your weekend been?
Been a pretty crazy weekend in the world of pop culture / Twitter / rap beef discourse with the battle of Drake versus Kendrick, which will be talked about in legends for decades to come.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's been I haven't listened to any of the tracks. I can listen to a few snippets, but it's some crazy stuff out there. It's just like Kendrick's dropping all these tracks, and like Drake and J. Cole's kind of like
It's not looking good for Drake. J. Cole got off pretty easy. He just kind of bowed out. He was like, I'm just going to let this happen. I'm just going to live my life.
I would do the same thing if I was in his shoes, honestly. But yeah, Drake, Drake is Drake. But yeah, I'm glad that you have had a great weekend. It's been a bit of a pop culture weekend for me as well. I went to go see The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1, in theaters yesterday on Star Wars Day. So that was a lot of fun. It was really cool. Just this weird resurgence of is this the early 2000s again?
It's been really effective.
It has. And the greatest part about all of this is that these tickets are only $5. When I went to go see Star Wars yesterday, it was $5. And I was like, oh, that's really awesome. And I went to go see Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi trilogy within these past few weeks, because they've been you can see it's starting off with Spider-Man 1 week and then going to Spider-Man 2 the next week, so on and so forth. So it was just great to see those movies in theaters again, because it's yeah, you can watch them at home anytime. But I got to say, the Spider-Man 3 crowd was wild, and it was hilarious. I absolutely loved it. And I might see the first Amazing Spider-Man, because I like that much better than Amazing Spider-Man 2, because it has the lizard and we don't really get to see the lizard all that much.
And it doesn't have Electro.
Yeah, and it doesn't have Electro or the Green Goblin. That was really, really bad. But no fault to Andrew Garfield himself. He has a huge cult following with those movies. But I might have to go see Spider-Man Homecoming or the Tom Holland trilogy in theaters again, because those movies are great altogether. But I've come to an understanding that you've been catching up on your history of evolution with the with the Planet of the Apes prequel trilogy there. I know you've been watching that this weekend.
Oh yeah, I got the first two in Friday night and then knocked the third one out Saturday afternoon-ish. It was a great time.
Yeah, I was watching War of the Planet of the Apes, but I had a lot going on, otherwise, outside of, and it was hard for me to kind of concentrate because I was doing other things at once. And I'm I need to just sit down and watch it. So I think I am going to rewatch War of the Planet of the Apes beforehand, because I was not giving it my undivided attention, because I was cooking and doing a few other things around the house. And I was no, I need to sit down and, just immerse myself in this. But I'm glad that you're having such a great weekend. It's a Sunday here. We got Monday around the corner, but this is how we fight our Sunday scaries, by podcasting. So as we mentioned before, we are going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts on The Fall Guy. So without further delay, we will be right back after this introduction to The Fall Guy.
Why are you here?
I think there's been a misunderstanding.
Clearly.
Because I was under the impression that you did want me here.
That's a delusional thought. We haven't spoken in a year.
I'm happy for you. This whole director thing looks good on you. Even the gardening hat, somehow.
Everyone wears them. It's like a set thing. Okay?
Yeah, I see it. They're not making it look as good as you are, that's all. And I'm not trying to be flat. I'm just saying the facts. But you look good in everything. You look good in nothing, whatever. No, I don't mean it like that. But you do look good in nothing.
This isn't going to work.
You do, but it's not what I...
And we are back with our spoiler-free review of The Fall Guy, and this film is directed by David Leitch, and writers include Drew Pearce and Glenn A. Larson, and stars Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson. This is actually a star-studded cast, like, to be completely honest. You have Hannah Waddingham, you have Stephanie Sue coming back, Winston Duke, and a few other surprises towards the post-credit scene of this movie. It's not really setting up another Fall Guy movie. It's just a really funny post-credit scene with someone I did not expect to actually be there, but that person definitely fits the bill. But the synopsis of The Fall Guy is as follows. A down-and-out stuntman must find the missing star of his ex-girlfriend's blockbuster film. That's pretty much the long and short of The Fall Guy. There are a few twists and turns here, but I think what the best part about this film is that it is directed by a person who used to be a stuntman. So it's really giving the homage to how important stunts are to films and how they could never be made without stuntmen and stuntwomen, or if you just want to say the gender neutral and just say stuntmen altogether. But I'm going to pass it over to Devin so he can give his initial reactions to The Fall Guy.
Yeah, going into this one, definitely very excited for this. Always a big fan of Ryan Gosling in comedic roles, and this definitely fits the bill there. Then obviously always a good fan of David Leitch, like you mentioned, the director, who was a former stunt guy himself, and then went on to just make a bunch of really, really fun action movies. Obviously, John Wick is the first one that comes to mind, and then he's also done Hobbs and Shaw, which is the best Fast and Furious movie of the past decade, probably, and Atomic Blonde.
You know what else he made? Outside of Atomic Blonde, he made Bullet Train.
Definitely similar vibes between those two movies, just kind of the over-the-top action sequences and the fun characters throughout, and just star-studded, like you mentioned. Just so much to look at on the screen, so many cool characters. It really is a love letter to stuntmen and the profession in itself, because I feel like not a lot of people even know of the work that goes into it and all the people that are in this profession and all the stuff they do for pretty much any movie that's ever made, like small or large. There's usually going to be the stuntman involved, and it's just kind of an overlooked profession. And I feel like this movie could be a wake-up call for the Oscars. Obviously, they have added some categories the past couple of years for casting, directing, and other things, but they haven't gotten to stunt work yet. And I think that's definitely something that they should look into, because they should be rewarded for their efforts. They are putting their life on the line, seemingly every day. Might not always be that serious, but it's definitely not a fun line of work as far as the pain tolerance, I imagine. Especially watching this movie, there's a lot of car crashes, a lot of flames, a lot of punching, and like Colt Seaver says, he never forgets a fist, which is a pretty good line. But yeah, I think overall it's a very fun movie. A lot of action, of course, as you'd expect, and the chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt is definitely there. I think the only issue I had was that we didn't really get enough time with these characters. We didn't really spend a lot of time. It just kind of like the movie just kind of like goes, and then just kind of off to the races. Don't really get a lot of actual like character building as far as like falling in love with these characters. I do like, however, that each character, no matter how big or small, they get like their own stunt moment. Like even Stephanie Shu's character, who is definitely like a smaller character role where she's kind of the assistant to the main actor. Even she gets a fight role. Obviously, Winston Duke's character gets some good fighting in with Ryan Gosling, and I just like how everyone gets their time to shine throughout.
So I definitely agree with everything that you have been saying, I should say. When it comes to David Leitch, like his his portfolio is pretty amazing. Like we already mentioned, like he worked on Bullet Train, Hobbs and Shaw. He's worked on Once Upon a Deadpool. He directed Deadpool 2, Atomic Blonde, like you said as well. And it's crazy how someone like this is able to make movies this good. And like you said, with Stuntmen and the Oscars or the Academy Awards, it is very important for them to acknowledge stuntmen, because there's been a lot of stuntmen in general, men or women, who have, they're risking their lives, they are risking the safety of their own well-being. Obviously there is a certain way in order to perform these stunts, but unless you're Tom Cruise, he's doing his own thing. But even then, it's very, very important to give these people the recognition that they deserve. And we have lost a lot of stunt men and women throughout the years. One that actually kind of, or stunt doubles, I guess you could say, one that actually comes to mind is the stunt double for Harry Potter, for Daniel Radcliffe. There's actually a documentary about that on HBO Max. I'm just not going to call it Max because everyone's going to be like, what? So it is actually called The Boy Who Lived, which goes through that whole situation. I believe it was either the third or fourth movie where Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double, he's still alive, but he's paralyzed from the waist down. And it kind of just goes over what happened there. And I think it's just important for stunt doubles or stunt men, stunt women to get the recognition from the Academy, because literally these movies cannot be made without them. Like, yeah, you're going to have film stars like Tom Cruise who kind of do their own stunts. And there are some actors who do their own stunts depending on what it is. But obviously Tom Cruise goes like above and beyond. But as far as the movie goes, my thoughts on it, I loved it. My theater ate it up. It was sharply written. It was funny. Obviously, like you said, every single character kind of has like their moment to shine when it comes to stunts. I will say this, the story is a bit outlandish and ridiculous, but like that's literally the entire movie. So it's like there's nothing really to compare, or not even compare, but complain when it's like, oh, you know how with Fast and Furious, they're like, oh, those movies are so outlandish, like, nothing ever makes sense. And it's like, well, nothing really ever makes sense in The Fall Guy either, but it's a great time. It is the first blockbuster of 2024 in terms of summer blockbusters, because usually when May hits, that is when summer blockbusters start off, even though it is technically still spring. But I gotta say, I love the chemistry between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, and especially the chemistry between Winston Duke and Ryan Gosling's character. It's just like, Colt Seavers is this stuntman who has a crush on the director of this movie, and, things go horribly wrong and he's out of the business for a while and he's asked to come back, and, the plot kind of just takes it over from there. But I do agree with you, Devin, when you're saying that we don't spend a lot of time with these characters because the plot is more of just a go, go, go. Like they don't really stop and give time for these characters to breathe, or these characters' arcs to breathe, outside of like Colt Seavers and Jodie's character altogether. I will say that Aaron Taylor Johnson, it's great to see him again. I think the last movie I actually saw him in was Bullet Train, which we actually covered here on the show. And yeah, it was just such a great time. Always amazing to see Hannah Waddingham as well. And also Stephanie Sue, because I feel like we haven't seen her since Joyride, that movie as well. So it's pretty cool to see that we still are able to see some of our favorite actors and actresses on screen when it comes to like a film like this, because Joyride was just as outlandish. And God, I don't know, we don't get comedies like this anymore, where it's just it's joke after joke, but I think the trailer for The Fall Guy does a great job of containing the story without giving away the best jokes, because that is the hardest part of a comedy. And of course, the action scenes are fantastic. Notice those little those Dune references in there.
Yeah, the Dune song, basically.
And a little bit of Zack Snyder as well, but mostly Dune for sure. But I just had such a great time with this. But I wanted to pass it back over to you if there was anything else you wanted to touch on that we have not had a chance to yet.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I don't know if you knew, but I didn't know going into it that it was basically like a remake of an 80s TV show called The Fall Guy. And that's where the post-credit scene comes into play with those two actors that showed up. Because I'm sure a lot of people would be confused about who they are. But my dad was actually mentioning it, that he had heard of the movie coming out and that it was a show from the 80s. I had no idea.
Really?
It's kind of interesting.
That is actually hilarious. I did not know that.
I don't think it's like the exact same story, but it's definitely, it's the same Colt Seavers. He's an actor who moonlights as a bounty hunter in the show, apparently.
There's a lot of things I did not know about this movie. That is probably the most interesting fact. Like, I don't even think that's on IMDb. I'm looking through it, but there's like at least 3 different cameos in this movie, and it's just it's great stuff.
And I love the action sequences, like you mentioned. I'm looking at the one with the it was like the garbage truck type setup, and he had the shovel, and he was basically like surfing through the streets of wherever they were. I think it was Australia.
Oh, yeah. That was great.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So I actually found a bit of trivia here. This is from IMDb. So the film Metal Storm, which is like in the movie, that's like the movie that they're filming within the film. Metal Storm is actually a real film from 1983. It was actually titled Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin.
Oh, yeah.
So it even shares the same tagline. It's high noon at the edge of the universe.
Wow, they actually took a real movie, and it was so outlandish, it sounded fake.
And also, this movie has actually been in development since 2010, Devin. 2010. Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves, Nicolas Cage, Jason Statham, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson were all eyed to play Colt Seavers over the years. That is crazy to think about. And honestly, I'm so happy that it went to Ryan Gosling, because Nicolas Cage would have been cool too, or Jason Statham. But I think the probably the big 3.
The comedy. It's just the comedy part where Ryan Gosling comes in.
Tom Cruise would have been cool too, because that's so on the nose, but it's like...
It's a little too on the nose.
Yeah, it's a little too on the nose, but I will say Ryan Gosling is definitely the best, because obviously Ryan Gosling has been around forever. I'm not sure if you saw like the original SNL skit where he's like going over the papyrus font for Avatar.
Yeah, that's a classic. I don't know what it is with Ryan Gosling and these just iconic SNL skits, because now he has the Beavis and Butthead one too.
I know. Oh, yeah, that was hilarious. But they did a second one for Avatar: The Way of Water. I don't think it was aired on television, but it's like 15 minutes long. It's on YouTube. It's actually pretty funny. But yeah, outside of not Keanu Reeves, outside of Ryan Gosling, maybe Nicolas Cage or Keanu Reeves probably would have been the 2 strong like front runners. Because, yeah, like you said, Tom Cruise is a little bit on the nose. Jason Statham, it would have been cool, but it's like whatever. The Rock, maybe. I don't know. I feel like he's been in a lot of movies like that. But, yeah, I'm really glad they went with Ryan Gosling, especially after, success with Barbie and literally everything else that he's been in. It's just something about Ryan Gosling, man. It just really... It brings in the crowd. It brings in the crowd.
Well, I hope it does bring in the crowd, because based on what we've been seeing, the reports that are saying it might be like a bit of a low opening weekend, which I think is very unfortunate, because it just is like, when you think about it, what more does the movie need at this point to get a crowd? Because you have Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt, great stars. They can definitely bring in a crowd. We've seen them have success over and over again. you got great reviews from critics and audiences. You can look that up right now on Rotten Tomatoes, but I mean, I feel like they're definitely looking pretty high as far as...
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, it's like an 83% for critics and then an 87% on the audience.
Yeah, I mean, those are both great scores. So it's like there's nothing missing here as far as what should get you in a theater. I think the main issue is that we've trained these audiences to just wait for streaming and for home release, and that's just kind of that's what's been messing with the box office here lately. And I think it's definitely having a big effect on the movie industry as a whole. And I don't know what the exact fix would be. I just think there should be a set length of time like there used to be before a movie hits the home market, because we're not giving these movies enough time to breathe or have an actual theater release.
I actually agree with that, because we've been, like you said, we've been seeing this with a lot of popular films in general. I think Immaculates, when we reviewed that, like that just came out. And it's like, oh yeah, it's going on VOD. Like it wasn't even in theaters for, it might have been a month, if that.
And I understand it's kind of like a difficult balancing act with this kind of a smaller movie like that with Immaculate. Like for that one, you could kind of see maybe like once they put it in home releases, it gets that boost of income from that, and that kind of can be. But for a bigger movie like this, I feel like it just doesn't help.
No, I agree. Even with Dune Part 2, because like it's like Dune, it just came out. I remember it was like maybe 2 weeks in, and then all of these like scoopers and insiders on Twitter were like, trying to get the scoop. They're trying to get the information out there first, and they're like, Dune Part 2 is set to release like middle of April or whatever for digital release. And I was like, why would you tweet that out? You want the movie to rack up as much money in the box office as you can. And like you said, we have trained audiences to wait.
It used to be it was like 6 months, 9 months before DVDs came out. Like
I think it's around 90 days is supposed to be the standard, at least today. But yeah, no, I agree. Even growing up.
Yeah, it used to be like 6 months.
Yeah, like it felt like movies were in theaters a lot longer before they hit home release, like DVD, Blu-ray, even VHS, even, because we're a part of that. We're a part of that crowd too. But I think you had sent me the tweet from Scott Mantz saying that even after heavy promotion, earning rave reviews since its South by Southwest premiere, Ryan Gosling stealing the Oscars. The Fall Guy is set off to a slow start. It cost around $130 million to make, which is more on the cheaper side nowadays. But it's projected to only make $28 million for the first week, I think week of release. And it's a really fun movie. And he was saying, like, what happened? Like, that's basically his entire tweet. You can find him over at Movie Mantz on Twitter. And I think Heavy Spoilers, if you don't know who he is, he's great at Heavy Spoilers. He said the movie will be out in about 4 to 5 weeks. And unfortunately, if it's not a I must see this now thing, people will save their money and wait. He's like, it's rare that you can get a long-term profit chasing short-term goals. And Hollywood on the whole has shifted to this model. And like you said, it pretty much sums up what we were talking about, where we have trained people just to wait. It in a way, it quote unquote pays to wait, but the fact that these studios are so quick for it to hit like digital release or something like this. I think this is underneath Universal, I believe.
Yeah, this one's Universal.
So it might go to Peacock. It might go to Max. It more than likely it will just go to Peacock because that is Universal's owned streaming service. But I mean, it sucks. And I think, like you said, training the audience, streaming is another big one where, like I said in our Fallout Season 1 review, like we were talking about like the binge model versus weekly release, people just want things now. Like we live in an instant age where it's more pro-consumer. Like when it comes to like binging, it's like, yeah, you're getting the entire story at once. You don't have to wait. Is that pro-consumer? Absolutely. Is it pro-consumer to release The Fall Guy or a movie like Dune Part 2 or Immaculate or any other blockbuster like The Fall Guy moving forward, or Godzilla X Kong, A New Empire, is it pro-consumer for those movies to hit digital for people just to buy it? You don't have to worry about like, the home release. It's like, hey, if you don't want to see it in theaters, just wait a few weeks and it'll be out on video on demand, which is like digital. So like it's more pro-consumer that way, but it hurts the industry. It hurts the business themselves because it's great that it's pro-consumer, but at the same time, it's not doing them any favors because a movie like The Fall Guy should be in theaters. This movie should be running from May 3rd, honestly, until I would say the end of August because it's that great of a movie. But it probably will stay in theaters that long. But the issue is that these studios will release during its theatrical run saying, hey, you can watch The Fall Guy on video on demand on Apple or Vudu or yada, 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 wherever else it might be. So then people are like, oh, well, I'll just either wait for it to hit streaming or I'll just buy the digital copy and watch it at home. So it really, really sucks. But I mean, I really hope people go see this movie. I really do, because it's so much fun. You don't have to think about a lot. Like the plot itself is a little iffy because it's like so much is happening at once. But my God, is it not a great movie? It's a great summer blockbuster. Take your kids. Well, I think you could take your kids to this. Kind of, sort of. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not too great. It's only PG-13, so it's not like a rated R one.
Right. It's not like a Unfrosted. I finished it.
Is that rated R?
I actually don't know. It was okay. Like, I mean, it was fun at first, but then towards the third act, it did get very messy. I think Jerry Seinfeld said he wanted us to be the opposite of the Barbie movie, and mission accomplished.
So the opposite is successful.
Yeah. But like it was fun at first, and then like the third act just got like really messy. I'm like, okay, what the heck is happening here? But nonetheless, I'm glad I watched it. It was only an hour and 30 minutes, so it wasn't super terrible. But actually, it looks like Unfrosted is PG-13 according to Rotten Tomatoes, which I can kind of see because they do make a few like sexual like puns and like innuendos, but nothing that a 13-year-old wouldn't be able to pick up altogether. But let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings for The Fall Guy. Devin, what are your final thoughts and ratings for this film?
Yeah, final thoughts. This is definitely a good time at the theaters. I can definitely see it being a great date night as well, just kind of with the love story that's in the background of this one. It doesn't take the forefront, I wouldn't say. It's not like you're watching a rom-com, but it definitely is a big part of the movie and a big part of the journey, and just a lot of great actors, a lot of great stunt work, and you can definitely see the love and care they put into it because it is people that do care. Obviously, David Leitch, being a stuntman himself, he knows what he's doing and he knows the industry inside and out. And it was cool seeing just like the inner workings of an actual movie because it feels like watching this is what it would be like to be on an actual set, and it's just kind of cool to see that. I feel like these characters are definitely a lot of fun. Do wish we got more time with them because obviously from Bullet Train, you remember Tangerine and Lemon. Like we got a good amount of time with them, and that's what made them so memorable and made us kind of fall in love with them as characters. So if we would have had some of those moments with a couple of these characters, it would have been a lot better. But overall, definitely a good time. I'm definitely a fan of what David Leitch has been doing, and I feel like I hope this one does better at the theaters than what's projected because I think it deserves it. As the score goes, I'd probably give it like an 86 overall. Like I mentioned, just a couple of character issues here and there, and then the plot, like you said, is definitely a bit iffy, just kind of all over the place. But it's silly enough to not take it too seriously.
I agree. Yeah, and honestly, as far as my score goes, I was actually going to go with an 80 out of 100. But yeah, I think an 85 is also very fair. But yeah, as far as my final thoughts, like it pretty much lines up with Devin's. The story is a little iffy, but I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that, again, this is like film Twitter, not like your general audience. I think general audience is going to absolutely love this movie. They're going to eat it up, but please go see this in theaters, because it's, this is how movies get made. And like you said, it felt like you were on the set of a TV show or just a movie set altogether. It's very meta, but it works so well. And these characters are awesome. The action set pieces are great, and it's just a great time. Like, I think I would say this is probably the best summer blockbuster opening that we've had within recent years, and honestly within 2024. I think with the titles that we have coming up, it's only going to get it's going to get like that much better. Just like all together, we have Twisters like coming up. We have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the Fall Guy. Like I think there's going to be a lot of great blockbusters, summer blockbusters this year. And the Fall Guy is definitely one of them. And I implore people to go watch this movie, because it's Emily Blunt, Ryan Gosling, and Aaron Taylor Johnson's in this movie. You get Stephanie Sue, Winston Duke. Like, there's a lot of great cameos. And also the thing, which is also a lost art form really quick, is the like post-credit like blooper scenes that play towards during the credits. You actually have something to like keep you busy instead of just like watching the credits all together until you get to that post-credit scene. And that you don't really see that a lot in films today, where you have like a blooper reel going while the credits are playing. And the Fall Guy does that. There was another film that did that recently as well. I'm drawing a blank on it, but I'll definitely have to find out, because it was definitely one of those movies where, I don't know, a lot of, I remember like a lot of animated movies used to do that too. They would do bloopers and they would animate the characters like doing the bloopers, and it was so much fun. But so an 80 out of 100 for me for scores, and then an 85 out of 100 for Devin. So our median score is going to be a 83.5 out of 100 for The Fall Guy. Again, go see this in theaters, please. You'll love it. I think everyone's going to love it. It's just one of those fun movies that everyone should take their family to go see. But that does conclude today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard on today's episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. And make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optix podcast to anyone out there. Now let's take a sneak peek of new releases that you can listen to on our podcast. So as of right now, you can listen to our Challengers reactions or reviews there, as well as our Fallout Season 1 review and our Shogun Season 1 review. And definitely go watch Abigail. That was a great horror flick as well. We did cover that here on the show. And as far as upcoming releases, gosh, we're going to be doing X-Men 97. I think we have 2 more episodes left until the season finale. So we're going to be talking about the season as a whole after the season finale airs. We're also going to be covering Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, coming out my birthday week. Literally the day, okay, it's like technically May 10th, but it's coming out on May 9th. So it's fine. And also, I'm going to be doing another Blu-ray review roundup for films such as Doom Patrol Season 4, The Departed on 4K. That was a great rewatch. And I'm also going to be covering Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. That is the second part of the animated event from DC Animated Studios, or DC Studios, I should say, or DC Universe, whatever it may be. So definitely keep a lookout for that Blu-ray review roundup coming up, as well as the others that I just mentioned. And also, again, thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And stay connected with us by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads for the latest updates on all that social media garbage. That was Devin, and I'm Christian, signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster.
Peace.